Awesome. And it shows that we're live on YouTube and Facebook. You'll give me a few minutes to just check up on this and get it shared out.
Take your time.
Almost done. Great. Okay, well, I will go ahead and get us kicked off. Good morning, and thank God it is Friday. Hope you guys are excited and ready for an awesome weekend. I just wanted to go ahead and get started with some housekeeping rules. Most of you know me by now. I am Juliette Abdel, President and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited to continue to bring to you some of our live broadcasts. Now, if this is your first time on our page, please be sure that you hit the like button and follow so you can get those alerts when we do go live, and so you can follow some of the content that we do provide to our community. If you're coming back to us, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in and staying informed on all things going around in our community, our county, and of course, our state, sometimes our nation if I bring you someone from the national level. Now, I like to keep this high level engaged, so be sure that you're commenting on our video. Let us know who's tuned in. If you have a question as our speaker is engaging with us, we want to see what that question is. Know that I don't really see who's tuned in until you guys type, and then later on you're like, oh, I was watching with you and I have no idea. So make sure that you make sure that you comment and give us those questions so we can be as engaged with you as possible. Now, these videos we've been bringing back to you since March. When COVID unfolded, they were to help our businesses adapt to the climate, things that they can implement quickly and keep their business going efficiently. We've then added more structure to them where our mayor kicks off the week with us on Monday. We feature a business success series that I hope you understand now a little bit more on what they're doing to ensure health and safety of their customers, how they've adapted and overcome, and ways that you can support them personally. Of course, we have our nonprofit corner, which you've missed the nonprofit corner yesterday. We had 5 Star Education Foundation with us sharing about what they're doing, how they've supported the Adams 12 school district, and then moving ahead or moving forward, what some of their goals are. Now, today's broadcast, and I shared this with you a couple of weeks back, we're starting to gear a lot of our Friday broadcasts toward elections, voter engagement, and things of that nature. So I'm pleased to introduce my speaker, but before I do, I know, George, you thought I was about to do it, but before I do, I want to start giving some shout outs because I see you guys tuning in with us. I see Alberto Garcia, former Mayor Pro Tem, on here with me. I see Dave DeMont, our board chair, Brian Dice. Good morning to you. Thank you for hopping on, Brian, and being the first to comment. I think after you, everyone started grabbing at that. I also see our board director, Wayne Anderson, who's also a former Broomfield County Commissioner and City Councilman. He's sharing his good morning remarks to both you and I, George. And of course, our Councilor Dave DeMont, good morning. I will be seeing most of you guys tonight at my gala, which is super exciting. So if I look raw right now, George assured me that I look fantastic. But if I look raw right now, you're going to see me cleaned up pretty well here in the next few hours. And then, of course, Alberto Garcia, thank you for hopping on. He is sharing with you, George. Thank you for the great work that you're doing over at Jefferson County. Now, most people have already started seeing these comments. I'm displaying them so you get familiar and get an idea on how we will show any comments or questions that come through our way. Hopefully you have a picture that you're proud of. I know Alberto is of his son. We need more of his son than Alberto next time in this profile picture. But the point is we like to engage with you. Make sure that you're giving us those comments, the compliments, and of course the questions that come to mind. Now, today's broadcast, I have a guest with me who I've met virtually. I'm looking forward to COVID really getting out the way so we could connect in person. But George and I had the opportunity of working together on a video for Women's Equality Day here in the last month. And after that, we connected and said, let's make this happen and bring him on to our live broadcast. George Stern is the Jeffco Clerk and Recorder and has been in this position, I want to say, for about nearly 2 years now. But I'll go ahead and mute myself and have him talk more to that, speak about what it looks like on the Jefferson County side in terms of elections, in terms of voter engagement, and take up any questions and comments that you might have.
Thanks so much, Juliet, and thanks everyone for being here. Good to see you again, Alberto. It's been a while. I am your clerk and recorder in Jefferson County, so half of Westminster, as Juliet mentioned, and going to take some time to just give you an overview of a few things. So I want to talk to you about our election system and the security behind it, because obviously there's been a lot of questions lately and a lot of information out there about mail-in voting and about the kind of voting we do here in Colorado. So just talk you through that a bit. I want to give you some key dates that are coming up because we are really getting into the thick of it here, 39 days until Election Day, and then talk to you about some things you can do in the next few days, next few weeks, next 39 days to make sure that you're able to participate in this process well. And then really hoping that there'll be some questions so I can answer any questions you got on your mind. As I mentioned, there are clearly a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about the election right now, about voting by mail, about voting in general. And I want to make sure that I'm hearing what's on your mind and answering those. So please do send along those questions. Juliet will cut me off at some point and let me know that you're asking them, and I'll be here to answer them. For those of you I have not yet met, my name is George Stern, clerk and recorder in Jeffco. I live in Golden, south of Westminster, obviously. Live with my wife, Pam, our four-legged child, Huckleberry Finn. We've got a two-legged child on the way. And when I'm not clerking and recording, which is becoming more and more of my time, especially these days, I'm also a volunteer firefighter here in Golden, which I did before I was clerk. I'll probably do after. It's my favorite thing I do. And we are very active in our community. We love living here in Jeffco. We're grateful to be in such a good community, have a ton of family in the area. And I am especially grateful to have, as Juliet mentioned, been clerk for about 2 years now. So we've got several elections under my team's belt, but we've got the big one coming up. And that's what we want to talk to you about here. The first thing, as I mentioned, I want to talk about just, for those of you who have been voting here a while, you know our voting model well. And I'll do that part quickly, but I want to go a bit into the security behind it too, because obviously security is forefront of everyone's mind in this election. So we are really lucky here in Colorado to have a universal vote by mail system. We've had this for 7 years, but we've had a vote by mail option for much longer than that. Some folks have been voting by mail since the 1990s. And for 7 years, we've had a system that has had broad bipartisan support. It's been run by Republican and Democratic secretaries of state, run by Republican and Democratic clerk and recorders in Jeffco and in Adams County and across the state. And it has support from Republican and Democrats. It was a system designed by Republican and Democrats. It sees equal participation. Republicans use the mail or drop box system at the same rate that Democrats do. And in fact, in the last few elections, Republicans have used it at a slightly higher rate than Democrats have. And Republicans and Democrats win under it. So all this to stress, of course, that this is a bipartisan system that has worked in a bipartisan way for a long time. And we are confident that no matter what the national conversation is, it can continue working here in Colorado. It works for a few reasons. The first is it's more accessible, right? You get those ballots 3 weeks ahead of time. We mail them out to you, and you've got a number of ways to turn them in. You've got drop boxes all over the place. In Jeffco, we've more than doubled the number of drop boxes in the last year and a half. We went from 15 to 34 in this election. Westminster, we went from 0 on the Jeffco side to now we've got at least 3, maybe 4. We've gotten a lot more vote service centers up there as well. And you've got until 7 p.m. on Election Day to get that ballot back to us at a drop box. You could also mail it back, for some folks in our rural areas, especially where even though we've added so many drop boxes, you might still be a 20-minute drive from a drop box. They like using the mail. You can use the U.S. Postal Service. We just recommend that if you do, you mail it back at least 8 days ahead of time, Monday, October 26th, because it does have to be in our hands by Election Day, not postmarked by Election Day. So you can use the mail if you act early. If you want to take your time, use those drop boxes. And then, of course, we have an in-person option. So for folks who need a little additional assistance, and there's a number of reasons why that might be the case. We see voters with disabilities who come in to use our accessible voting machines. We also see people who got a ballot in the mail, but their dog literally ate it, or their kid spilled juice on it, or they spilled an adult beverage on it. We've seen it all. You come on in, you get a replacement ballot from us where we make that very simple for you. We've also got folks who move in the last couple of weeks, might not have updated their info in time. You can come in up until 7 p.m. on Election Day to register to vote or update your voter registration and get those get your ballot and vote it right there. You do have to go to a vote center in your county. So if you're on the Adams side of Westminster, you go to an Adams vote center. If you're on the Jeffco side of Westminster, you go to a Jeffco vote center. The drop boxes, though, you can use whichever one you're closest to. So get those in and we'll get them to the right place. All that again to say, the system works and has broad bipartisan support because it's accessible. And all of that accessibility is paid off. We in Colorado are almost always in the top 2 or 3 states in the country for turnout. And we anticipate that's going to be the case again in this presidential election. So, there's states that are getting more attention right now, getting more advertisement, more money poured into them. And we will probably beat them significantly in turnout because we have this model that makes it so easy for our folks to vote. It is also, I think, worth mentioning, more efficient. So when we switched to this model from a traditional precinct-based polling place to our vote by mail system, we ended up, by some estimates, by some studies from nonpartisan nonprofit sources like the Pew Research Fund, we ended up saving 40% of our costs by switching to this. And it's for a very simple reason. In a precinct polling place model, in Jefferson County, I would have to open up 309 election day sites because I've got 309 precincts. Because today, almost everyone votes by mail or drop box. Usually 1 or 2% of our voters vote in person. Because so few vote in person, I'm going to open up 1/10 of those sites. I'm going to open up 32 sites on election day. And so we save money on election equipment, on judges staffing all those sites, on rental fees for all those sites, on the logistics of getting the equipment and the judges and everyone else out to those sites. Save a considerable sum of money, even though we're mailing ballots to everyone, even though we're putting in drop boxes. So accessible, efficient, win-win, but the only way we can continue advocating for this system, continue being proud of this system, is because it is also more secure. Colorado has been called the safest state in the country to cast a ballot by experts on both the right and the left. So President Trump's former Homeland Security Secretary called Colorado the best example of election security for other states to adopt. The Washington Post said the same thing. We see this across the political spectrum, and it's because of our mail-in system, not in spite of our mail-in system, because that mail-in system gives us a number of benefits. So we have, first of all, paper trail, right? Everything is paper. If we're mailing you a ballot, that's a piece of paper that you're filling out, and you're returning that piece of paper to us, and we store those pieces of paper for 25 months after the election. So we've got a paper trail all the way through. Nothing is left up to chance or machine there. We can store it. We can audit it after the fact. It's all public record. Anyone else could come in and request all 400,000 ballots and count them themselves if they wanted to, if they had the time and money to do that, and they would find that our count is exactly right. But we only can make that possible because of our paper trail. The second and the cornerstone of security in this vote by mail system is signature verification. So as you know, from filling out your ballot, we require you, we say it in like 7 different spots, so hopefully you're not missing it. Make sure you're signing that ballot before you turn it in. And that is because if you do not have a signature on your ballot, we will not even open that ballot. And we're comparing the signature on your ballot envelope to a signature we have on file in your voter registration record. Every single one. Jeffco, we're expecting about 380,000 voters this November. We will be comparing 380,000 signatures, not half of them, not a random sampling of them, every single one. We have teams of bipartisan judges who have been trained by an FBI handwriting expert to recognize signatures. They've been tested, they've been audited. and they go through and they're comparing every single one. You can come down to our facility and see this for yourself. We welcome watchers from every campaign to come see it, and they watch the signature verification process, and we're comparing them. And if those signatures match, it's matching one we have on file from when you registered to vote or when you last voted. We've got your entire signature history. If you're brand new here, we've got that one from when you registered. If you've been voting by mail for 20 years, we've probably got 50 signatures from you, from every DMV visit, from every time you voted, from when you first registered, and we're comparing. And by the way, when you first registered to vote, you had to show us a form of ID. You might have had to, if you did it online, you had to enter a driver's license number that we're from Colorado, that we're pinging against the Department of Revenue to make sure it's real. And so this claim that there's no voter ID here is just false. You had to show an ID, and we verify the signature every single time to make sure it's right. If they match, your vote goes on to processing and gets counted. If they do not, they go to a second round of review. Here's where the team of bipartisan judges is looking at your entire signature history, because sometimes someone, they're signing really quickly, and it might have changed a little bit, but when we look at all 30 signatures, we can tell, yeah, that's you. Sometimes you sign quickly, or sometimes our most recent signatures when you're at the DMV on those horrible pads where you can't even see what you've written, and we get really bad signatures from those. And so then we go back and we look at, all right, maybe they didn't match with that one, but we can see the last time you voted and your envelope signature looks the same every single time. We take it really seriously, right? Because if we are not, we need to make sure that we are not letting anyone who should not be voting vote. And that's what the signature helps us do. But we also don't want to be throwing out the vote of a valid voter who just had to sign quickly because they were in a rush or who had a bad DMV experience. So we look at that entire history. And then very importantly, if we reject you after that second round, your envelope will not even be opened, but you will, within 2 or 3 days, if you have an email on file within a few hours, you will get an email from us, and then you'll get a snail mail letter from us that says your ballot was rejected because your signatures do not match, but you have up until 8 days after the election to fix this. And we give you now a number of ways to do that. So we have expanded our technology here in Jeffco. You can now do this on your mobile phone. You can sign on your phone, take a picture of your photo ID for us, send that back to us, and that will show us that you are indeed an eligible voter. You are who you say you are, and we'll count that ballot. So you have the ability to cure your ballot, it's called, up until 8 days after the election. And if you vote early, you're going to get that notice from us weeks before the election. So you've actually got 2-3 weeks to fix it, and we want to make sure you do. But the number getting rejected and the number curing is less than 1%. It's incredibly small. And so, you probably, if you voted even a bunch of times here in Colorado, have never seen this because you signed the same and it's all fine. But if you get rejected, you'll get those notifications. Make sure to act on it so your vote does count. And then anyone who does not respond to those letters, we end up turning over to the district attorney's office because we take, again, the security here very seriously. And if someone is trying to vote for someone else, that's a felony. And the district attorney is going to prosecute that. And I'll tell you what happens is we turn over to them a very small number every year because there just are not a lot of people signing poorly or not responding to those letters. And then they investigate each one, and almost always it is something incredibly innocent that you might not have thought about. So it's a person who broke their arm and was signing with their opposite hand, and their signature doesn't look anything alike because they're signing with their opposite hand. But they are who they say they are. When the district attorney shows up at their door, they find that out quickly, but they broke their arm. Or it's someone who got married and changed their last name, and John Smith does not look anything like John Francis, and so those signatures were rejected. But now the district attorney says, oh, you got married, that's fine, we're going to count it. All of this could have been caught in the cure process if the folks responded to that letter. And then the number who the district attorney ultimately goes to prosecution on, usually 0 in most elections, sometimes 1 or 2 out of 400,000. Fraud is just not really something we see here. We've looked hard. People of both parties have looked hard. It just doesn't happen. We've got a very secure system, and we will catch it if it happens. So paper trail, signature verification. We then, as I mentioned, we're storing the ballots for 2 years after the election. So we audit them when we have the chance. We have all of this done, everything from picking the ballots up to processing them, done by teams of bipartisan judges who are in 24/7 surveillance. We invite watchers in from the campaign. They get to watch every step. They can be here every hour of every day if they want to. If they've got the tenacity to go as long as our team does, then they can be here and they can watch it. And President Trump, Vice President Biden can send watchers in to see the process up close. And all of that has led to, again, Colorado being called the safest state in the country to cast a ballot. We're very proud of that security, and we're keeping it up and making sure we stay on top of it. So that's our model. I'm going to do quickly some key dates and what you can do, and then hoping we've got some questions coming up. But key dates in a week from 2 weeks from today, Friday, October 9th, we're mailing you your ballots. That's a few days earlier than usual. We want to make sure they get to you on time, and you will get them. We've talked to the post office a lot. You will get them when you normally do, 2 to 2.5 weeks before the election. You'll have time to fill them out in the comfort of your own home and return them to us. That same day, Friday, October 9th, we're opening all of our 24-hour drop boxes. Monday, October 19th, we open all of our, or not all of, we start phasing them in, but we open several of our in-person vote centers if you need that additional support in person. Monday, October 26th is the last day that you can update your info online and have us mail you a ballot. It's also the last day we recommend you mail your ballot back to us. That's 8 days before the election. The last day we recommend you mail it back to us if you're going to mail it. But you can turn it into a drop box. And if you need to update your info, you can come into an in-person vote center up until Election Day, Tuesday, November 3rd at 7 p.m. We'll have all of our sites open. We'll be able to help you out, and you can go to a drop box right up until 7. What you can do. So a few things here in the next few days. First of all, if you know you've moved recently, if you aren't sure that your address is right, if you know you updated at the DMV, but you're not sure it passed over, check your info right now. You go to, if you're in Jeffco, you can just go to votejeffco.com, but for anywhere in the state, especially if you're on the Adams side, you can go to govotecolorado.gov, govotecolorado.gov, and you just click on find my info or find my registration. You enter a few things that lets us know it's you, and then you'll be able to see your status, your address, and everything else, so you'll know that it's up to date. Update it now if you know you need to, because we're mailing those ballots in 2 weeks. We're printing them right now, and so you want to make sure your info is up to date so you can get that ballot on time to the right address. Second thing I'd encourage you to do right now, sign up for ballot tracks. If you're in Jeffco, votejeffco.com. If you're anywhere else in the state, again, that Secretary of State's website, govotecolorado.gov. And we now have this statewide. We've been doing it in Jeffco for a while. We're really excited about it. It's like tracking an Amazon package. We're going to send you an alert, however you choose, email, text message, phone, when we mail the ballot out to you, so you know it's on its way. And then you're going to get another alert from us when we get it back from you. We tell you, yeah, we've received it. We're processing it. So you can rest assured that it wasn't lost, it wasn't stolen. It's in our hands and we're processing it. Hugely popular for people who have signed up for it in the past, because it gives you that peace of mind and lets you know it's coming, especially now when there's questions about the post office and everything else. And then finally, I'd encourage you to read more on our election security. So votejeffco.com, click on election information. We've got all the election security stuff I just talked to you about in a lot more detail, videos of our system. We're going to do a virtual video tour next month where we invite people in to see the whole process up close. We do that in person normally, but we're doing it virtually now. Please take advantage of that, because I know there's a ton of questions out there. And even if you don't have them, your neighbors do, your Facebook friends or enemies do. And we want to make sure that everyone is up to speed on how safe our system is. And then finally, vote. Vote early if you can. It helps us process ballots faster and save more money because we're not paying overtime on the final few days. It helps you have the peace of mind that your vote was counted. It helps you because we'll get you more results sooner, and everyone wants results sooner and wonders what's going on when results take longer. Please vote early. But whenever you vote, you can vote up until 7 p.m. on election day. Just turn out. It's really important, and make sure everyone else in your lives are as well. I'll pause there and take any questions that we've got.
You were awesome. Thank you so much for all of that information. We have a lot of people that have hopped on. George Stern with us from Jeffco is visiting about all things elections. He is a Jeffco clerk and recorder and has shared a wealth of information. I've tried to capture all of it into the comment section of this broadcast. So if you're just now hopping on with us, you can probably scroll through those and pick up as much as I could have gathered. Quick shout out to a couple of other people that have hopped on here with us. I see Jason Gink, Parker Brown, I'll see you tonight, of course, Derek Tanaguchi, and then it looks like Councilor Bowles has hopped on here as well with us. He shared a good morning message our way, so just wanted to pull that up for you. There are a number of things that you touched on, George, and I would love to dissect them all, but I know that when I start asking and firing away too many questions, we'll stay here for another hour. So I'm going to try and be as brief as I can. You shared, and one, thank you for continuing to retain those sites where people can physically go. I am one of those people that physically goes, even though I get it in the mail and I can drop it off. I do go to the polling site, and that's where I in my ballot, but I will make sure that I actually do that earlier on so that you guys are not having to do that last minute. Thank you also for addressing the question of the number of signatures that you are verifying and the percentage that are turned back. That was going to be something I was going to ask you, but it seems like you already have a grasp on that, and that's less than 1% of the ones that are being submitted through, which is good to know. We also touched about Colorado being a fantastic system for others to emulate. And, you mentioned how this is a bipartisan support for this system. And so if we look at our former secretaries of state, including even Wayne Williams, who kind of came out and said, there's nothing wrong with this system, it's great, even to the present day Jenna and several others, this is a system that we've had in place and it's continued to work. So I have a couple of questions for you. One is going to be, and this is, I promised you I would ask about what you talked on, but I feel like you can answer this for me. There have been, and I've seen this quite often, it's this skepticism that arises whenever we talk about this mail-in. Some people have referenced, I think it was last year maybe, there was local elections or something that had taken place where the results had completely changed because there was a waiting period on recounts. I think there was an error with receiving those ballots in, and so whenever they did recount it, it was a complete different result, and so there was pushback. And I know that a lot of people have continued to reference that as here's an example of how it was drastically different, what had transpired, what could have transpired during that time to have changed that result as it did. And so what can you share to provide that peace of mind to answer that question, or maybe try and address, even though it wasn't in our county, but it was something that did take place here in Colorado?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the specific instance you are talking about, but I'm happy to talk about results and how they come through, and then all the checks in the process that exist after the election. A lot of people think that they are going to get a result on election night and then that's it. And it's very much not. So let me briefly touch on that process. The first thing is we are processing ballots as we get them. We start counting them 15 days beforehand. We don't have any results until 7 p.m. on election night, but we are ready with the touch of a button to have those results. And at 7 p.m. on election night, we've counted everything that's come in through Monday. And that's usually about 3/4 of our ballots. So you normally see some people, if you're into elections, we hear about you're just refreshing starting at 7, and sometime between about 7 and 7:30, counties post their first results. And those results are typically about 70 to 75% of the entire results that are going to come. But we've still got 25 to 30 left, and those have all come in on election day. Again, if we can crank that number up, if you all are voting earlier, so help us by voting earlier. But those ones that come in on election day are a lot of times they're coming from folks who have procrastinated. Those voters tend to be younger. Those voters tend to have been ones who maybe have moved more recently and didn't get updated in time, so had to come in person at the last minute. And sometimes those votes do not have the same exact percent breakdown as the votes that came in up until 7 p.m. And so we see often that results change considerably, even though it's only 30% of the ballots left from 7 p.m. until when we're finished counting 8 days after the election. So 7 p.m. is a good indicator of most of the results, but those can continue changing, and especially in close races, they do. I'll tell you a personal story. At 7 p.m. on election night in 2018, I was losing, and my opponent was counting the votes. So you know that this was an honest process because ultimately she lost. And over the course of the next 4 days, I went from losing by about 3,000 votes to winning by about 3,000 votes. So it can change dramatically in those final several days. And again, kudos to the team for being very honest and transparent about the results. Everyone is in Colorado. So military voters and voters curing their ballots have until 8 days after the election for those ballots to return back to us. A soldier stationed in Iraq mailing that ballot back takes a little bit longer than 8 days to get here, and we want to make sure his vote counts. And this is the part that really rubs me the wrong way when people say, we expect all results on election night. What you're saying is you expect me to not count the vote of a voter stationed in Iraq overseas, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to count that vote every single time. So we're taking the time to get the results right, not fast, to be accurate with it, and to let those ballots continue trickling in for 8 days after the election. And then after those 8 days, we audit everything. So we've got all the paper trail there. We're pulling a random sampling to make sure that they're accurate, to make sure that, that count, even if it changed, is accurate and the right result. And then again, we store them. So if anyone really has questions about, what's the real count here, if you don't trust me, come see it yourself. You're welcome to come down and see all the ballots and do your own count if you'd like to make sure it's accurate. That's the beauty of a paper trail, is that anyone can verify these results and rest assured that the results are accurate.
Absolutely. And hopefully, George, you can share with me the date next month that you do wind up doing a virtual component. I think you might actually end up having a better turnout, maybe, or a larger turnout with people that are staying at home and are very focused right now on the present situation with everything. Believe it or not, we're at the 30-minute mark, so I'm out of time to be able to keep pestering you with questions. So instead, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your Friday morning to be here with us, for sharing those highlights, also providing tips for those that are tuned in so that they have the peace of mind, understanding the transparency and the work that goes into really having this election and future elections moving forward. Of course, to everybody that's tuned in, I appreciate you guys as well. Make sure that you're sharing the content of this video. We are only stronger together, and other folks are only as informed as the people that they surround themselves with. So make sure that, George earlier on shared whether you're trying to get talking points so you can combat the positives or negatives that are happening on your Facebook. Share this out. Hopefully this will answer questions for them as well. And if you end up watching this video on replay, give us that hashtag replay. If you think of a comment or question but didn't get a chance to ask it, type it in. I'll get that over to George. And of course, you can also DM it to us if you are not comfortable sharing that out to the general public. And we will be back here on Monday, 11 a.m. with the mayor. Please stay with me, George, as I tune out from this broadcast with everybody. But I hope everyone enjoys an amazing weekend. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Julia, and thanks, everyone.